In this Safer Together chat, we've got Commissioner Muldrow with the York City Police Department, Chief Lash with Northern Regional, and Pastor Ramona. They're going to talk about local police efforts to train police officers around implicit bias, specifically regarding race. Thanks for watching.
Since I was around since the beginning, when we first started it, to say we need to talk, and we need to talk with our chiefs. We need to get something going, because with the riots happening down in Baltimore, we could feel the pressure of the children here, or the young people here, ready to do the same thing. And we didn't want our city to be tore up, because of what was happening in the nation. But everyone was, that Freddie Gray, and then what happened there with George Floyd. That's his name, George Floyd. Yeah, that was getting very close. And we were thinking, if anything happened, and mainly, yes, we would have said it would have happened out in this area, Dover or whatever, York's going to respond. So the situation can happen out in this area, but it's the city that's going to respond. It's the city youth that are going to be, tearing up and doing whatever. So that was important for us to try to head that off. And because of the vision of our new president, Pastor Kearney, with his communication skills, and then meeting with Aaron Anderson with Logos. I remember when Logos first came to one of the DMA meetings when they were first coming to the city. And we were just looking at, okay, this is coming here into the inner city. It's a Christian school. Oh, that's great. That's what we want. But we didn't know it was going to be even greater being utilized when that city school, Christian school, came into the city.
So it's been working for a while then. You've been meeting for 7 years.
Yeah.
Fast forward, you guys still meet on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And the last meeting in particular, you had dialogue with Commissioner Muldrow, right?
Yes. And in that, when I came into the meeting, my husband, he kept saying, make sure you bring that up. Make sure you bring that up. I said, okay, I'm going to look at it. Well, when there was a police officer in Philadelphia who shot a young man through the car, and you could see it because everything is videoed now. And, my husband was so upset about it, and I was upset about it. And when I found out he got off, we were like, what? You can't. How does he get off completely? So that was the day of our meeting. Mm-hmm. So when I came in, I brought that up, and I was bringing up, I said, see, still, African Americans or Hispanics, we still have that fear. For a regular traffic ticket, you could lose your life. But I was sharing how, they're not going to trust this. The males aren't going to trust the police officer, and even females, even after I was sharing. And when I brought that up, that, we're still fearful of the police, mm-hmm. not trusting the police to do the right thing. And
Chief Muldrow responded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I understood because I'm sensitive to it. I'm sensitive to where she was at, the energy that she came in, came in the conversation with, because, truth be told, if I'm not in my own area and I'm driving around in somebody else's county or another area that nobody knows who I am, I still have to follow all the same mm-hmm. rules that my dad gave us as being, that we were raised with, that knowing that you're going to be a young black man or a young black or brown individual moving about people's communities that don't know you, you get the talk. And it's funny because as I grew up and got older and I've interacted with colleagues, I've interacted with my friends and everything, white males and stuff, and the talk isn't something that a white male, like we talked about in my office, the talk isn't something that a white father has with a white son. You don't have the conversation that, look, if you're pulled over by the police, just make sure you mind yourself, you mind your P's and Q's, keep your hands clear and stuff. Just listen, go with what they say, keep your mouth shut, remember the badge number if it feels like it's going funny, and just be decent about it so the interaction can get done, get over, and not have any issues. That is standard for everybody in my community that I grew up with that looks like me. And it's not for my counterparts, for a white father to have that with his son. So I'm cognizant of the fact that that is the perception, because that's perception that we have to have, that we've had for so many years. But that was the conversation that we had in the meeting. It was a matter of, and I came in with something heavy on me that day and didn't expect to do a whole lot of talking or anything. And it was something just kind of spoke to me in that moment, in that conversation. I think it might even more. I think it spoke to me because it was Pastor Ramona, and I care about what she thinks. I care about how she feels. Like I'm accountable to the things that I'm accountable to the looks that she gives me. I tell you, when we first started this interview, she stopped and pulled her gum out. And for real, that was like my mom telling me, like, get your gum out your mouth. So I stopped and pulled my gum out. So I felt the need to respond and just make sure that I spoke to that and let her know that there's a whole lot of us in leadership in this area that because of the work that you guys have done over the course of the last 7 years, we're being intentional about having that not be our reality here in this county and in this city, in this county, in this area, in this community, in this amongst all of our chiefs and stuff. So I was just trying to make sure that she knew that we've listened years ago now at this point, and everybody's trying harder, pushing harder, having those difficult conversations back at our own stations and pointing out things that in the past we may not have pointed out, listened to concerns that in the past we in this field may not have listened to, then willing to make ourselves a little more uncomfortable as people that do this job to make sure that we can have our community feel more comfortable about us doing it.
Yeah, well, and so Chief Lash, you were a part of these conversations for a while, and you've heard concerns. Pastor Ramona shared that historically she didn't feel comfortable driving through Dover, but there's been a lot of effort on your part to change that.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm going to go back to the first time I met Ramona. We actually hosted a meeting here at our station, and I'm second generation into the police and clergy. Okay, Chief Benson was my predecessor. He was one of the original members, and he was out of town, and unbeknownst to me, he had signed us up to host a meeting. So I get to sit in on the meeting, and I went to it, and I'm like, all right, is it going to be a hug-a-thon? What is this crap? Is this going to be worth my time, our time? And I remember sitting in that meeting, and Ramona wasn't upset, but she had concerns about driving to Dover for this meeting, and it caused her concerns. And as a white guy who had never had that talk, never had those concerns, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to a beautiful middle-aged woman who is afraid to drive to Dover into my jurisdiction. And I'm thinking to myself, how powerful is that? So then we continued talking during that, and I'm like, all right, this meeting has some teeth to it. This is a good thing. And then I also remember in the same meeting, and the conversations that we have during these meetings are fantastic. And Ramona and I, she keeps me in check. I try to keep her in check. And at the end of the day, we always hug, right? Because we love each other. But there was a white pastor in the audience that day, and we were kind of him-hawing around some things. And I'll give him credit; he's no longer part of the group. But he said, "Excuse me, but I am confused. What are we as white people supposed to call black people or African Americans? What do you think?" And I remember Ramona very specifically stood up and said, "I am a proud black woman, and that's the way I want to be addressed." And I thought, all right, we're on to something. This is a fantastic group, and we can start to have these conversations and start to interact like that and start to change the perspectives. I grew up in a town in Clearfield County that had one black family. I grew up in Kerwinsville, which is about an hour west of State College. Okay. So we had one black family. I had one black student in my school. So moving down here, and then of course I moved down here. I live in suburban York. I live in the Dover community, a predominantly white community. Most of our jurisdiction is predominantly white. And so we never had that. I'd never had that background or that interaction as a youth. I went to Penn State, got a little bit of indoctrination there. But again, at Penn State, it was very separated when I went in the early 90s, by the races. There weren't a lot of interactions. I did have, people lived on my dorm floor, but I didn't have a lot of interaction. And then when I hear somebody who I I know she's older than me, but she looks much younger than me. She's a beautiful woman. Say that she's afraid to drive to a place that I have protected for the last 28 years or so at the time. That causes you pause, and it really causes you to start to think of, all right, I've never looked at it from that perspective. And that's, as we know, life is all about perspective and how we view things and how we take things, much like the national perspective versus the local perspective. It kind of all runs full circle. And those are concerns and fears we have to address as leaders, and that we have to pass down to our officers so that they understand that.
Like what has been done? And
Can I share? In the beginning, when we first got together in Springersbury, there was a diversity training that we all got involved with, that they allowed all the clergy to bring even our family members to. Mm-hmm. So I went to the diversity trainings that first got started from Springersbury. And Chief Benzo, he was here, and it was just great. He pulled us into one of his officers' trainings. And so we came here. I went to every place that invited us for that diversity training, so that I knew that they were what I heard being taught, that those officers were getting. So this is new for everyone. This is new for everybody. And so just being invited, in the daytime, I'm fine in Dover. Nighttime, I want to get into the city late night. When my son, I said he lived up around the corner, and so I was out here even more. But one thing Chief Benzel said to me too, he had never been in inner city restaurants or in inner city to eat ever. So we start looking at that like, they're like, York, why? Why didn't you come into the city? And there were reasons why. People felt like, some places were more dangerous. And I said, if it was that dangerous, most of us probably wouldn't live there. Because I said, there are nice places everywhere. But it was very interesting to be invited to sit with the new officers and hear what they're being trained with. So when I finally did get stopped, and I got stopped by Springersbury, I calmed down because it was very dark. And two tall, big men coming up on both sides of my car, and I'm looking in my mirrors.
Both white?
Both white. But because I knew the chief, and I was in the trainings in Springersbury, I knew what they were supposed to do, and let me see if they're going to follow it, because I'm going to take it back to our meeting. It was very good. It was very good. He did everything he was supposed to do. I knew he had to be new because they were really dotting and crossing. Wasn't that big of a deal, because I even talked to him. I said, you can't stop me for that. It was one of the lights in the middle, brake lights, but not the brake lights, the one on your car. And I said, you can't stop me for that, though? He said, yes, we can. So I had to go back to the city and tell everybody, listen, make sure all your lights are working, because they can stop you for it. I mean, that was a learning experience, but also, like I said, the ending, everything went well to that little small ending part. I understood he was making a joke, that it was just for me. This is my get out of jail free card. Others may not have liked it. Saying, what you mean I'm going to jail just for a light out? You understand? Because of the narrative that was going around, just saying that little bit.
So just to be clear, he said jokingly, well, here's your get out of jail free card. And you took the time to explain to him, like, hey, I don't understand that that's just lighthearted, but if you're a black man driving through this city or this area at dark and you say that, it can come across wrong.
We didn't get to say that. I didn't get to say that to him. I talked to the chief because we were actually at another training together, a lot of us. And I said, do I want to bring it up to him? I don't want to get anybody in trouble. That was my first thought, because it wasn't a big deal. But I just wanted to share, we just went through this. It didn't mean a big deal, to me. That's my get out of free jail card. But for some others, they might have took it offensively. I said that to the chief. And I said, just something. So he wanted to look back at the camera and see our interaction. And I said, good, look back at it and let's see how it
You
went.
weren't in trouble then, were you?
No.
Because you didn't say, wow.
No. We get called in and we try to help in situations, give some advice if we can on how to handle a situation if it deals with someone that's black. The question was, they wanted to know if we say African American. I said, none of us say African American to each other. That's what I was saying. I said, I know it's the proper talk now. But none of us, I don't go up to T-Bone and be like, hi, African American. I don't do that.
No, hopefully, I did want to add a piece into the same thing, the same segment. Hopefully, I'm going to say this in advance. Hopefully, this isn't where the conversation goes off the rails. But I'm going to be me, wherever I'm at. So I think what makes, the questions you asked about like training and stuff and everything else, like as far as trying to address it, like what have you done? I believe in the training piece. That's all nice and well and good. Now, this is where it's going to get real. That's not where I hang my hat at. Where I hang my hat when it comes to relationships and building on this and trying to level that platform is presence, conversation, and exposure. And what I mean by that is, it's one thing to send people to training so that they can send officers to training so that they feel more comfortable interacting with Black people or Hispanic people or women. That's one thing. That's nice. That's a good thing we should all be doing. But having Black people, Hispanic people, and women in your locker room, in your conference room, in the squad car next to you, really changes things. That changes my next piece, conversations. It changes the conversations that can be had. It limits whatever your internal biases or implicit biases may be. That's fine and dandy. You can feel however you feel. And this is, I'm like you said earlier, second generation. I'm a second generation cop. I served in the same department my dad did. And like he told me going into it, yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of people in there that aren't going to like you on the inside, may have personal feelings about whatever. But once you're on a job and you're off the field training, you say the wrong thing, and we're going to have a crucial conversation in the locker room about this. And you're holding people accountable in the moment. You say the wrong, I've seen it. You say the wrong thing about to individuals that you're dealing with on a call in front of certain female officers, and I've seen it, people like Kim Hibner and stuff, Laura Walker, they're going to check you and say, watch your mouth. Like, that's not the way you talk to somebody's mom or somebody's wife. You say certain things about the Hispanic community or use certain references in front of somebody like Detective Commander Baez, and you're going to have a difficult day because he's around. And now at this point, we have so many Asian American officers. I have an officer that was she was prior Israeli combat and speaks 7 languages and is extremely opinionated. You say the wrong thing around her, and there's going to be a long conversation that's going to be had. But the thing about those conversations is that's what really changes your station. That's what changes impressions and perceptions. It's what he said earlier about if he grew up in a place where there was no Black people, what was his point of reference? He was not going to have a point of reference other than what he saw on TV or on the news until he was able to sit down.
Which when we were kids, that was a completely different.
Yes.
The way Blacks were portrayed on TV was a completely different way than they are today.
Yes.
You had Sanford and Son. You had, you had Archie Bunker. You had, all the old stereotypical when I was a kid. And that's how we knew. That's how
you got to have those interactions, and it's funny because the last couple of new groups, and we've been hiring in waves now. And the first time was when I was doing the community walks, and we got lucky that the mayor let us hire, and you'll appreciate this, hire so that we had about a month with the officers, with the candidates before we sent them to the academy. Man, that turned into the biggest luxury that we could have been afforded. And I'm always thinking up stuff. So I was preparing for a community walk, and I told our training officer, give me all the new guys. Send them all with me on the walk. Before they get a uniform, before they get a badge, before they get a gun, before they get the authority that the community is giving them anyway, send them with me and let me go show them our world, show them our community. And the funny part was I took this large group of new officers and I took them down to Parkway. Took them down to Parkway, and we went for a walk. And I've lived a lot of lives, so a lot of people know me. I know a lot of people. And I saw a group of young boys that somebody would have drove by and would have called them thugs. And a bunch of group of young boys sitting on the stoop. And I'm like, hey, can I talk to y'all? And so they walked, they gave them some more, and I started talking to them. And I said, look, see these guys right here? And they were like, yeah. I said, those are all my new cops. Those are all the new cops that are coming. Here's what I want from y'all. No badge, no gun, no uniform, no authority. I'm giving you an opportunity to tell them what you want them to know before they come and start serving you on your community.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And force this interaction on
Yeah.
the sidewalk down our Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
And what came out, I wish I would have recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the young guys literally stepped up in front of this big group, in front of all these new officers. He stepped up and he said, look, here's the deal. I've been in trouble off and on all my life. I've been chased all around by y'all. I've wrestled around with some of y'all. I've been punched, whatever, everything else. But I don't have a problem with that. He said, I don't have a problem with that. I understand you have a job to do. I have a mom. I have a toddler. I want my mom and my little girl to be able to walk to that corner store and not get harassed by anybody, not have anybody rob them or shoot them or do anything to them. So I appreciate what you do. Here's what I need from you. And they all looked at him with bated breath, looking at his face. He says, I just need you to do it without all the extra. Do it without the name calling. Do it without the disrespect. Do it without the extra. And otherwise, I'm good. And it was funny. We walked away. And as we were walking back to our van to hit our next area, tell me why one of them guys, one of them candidates actually one came over to me and he said, look, I just wanted to tell you, I'm sorry. I'm like, what do you mean you're sorry? He said, I had in my head the impression of what a project was going to be, but I had never been to a housing project.
A housing
and
project.
This isn't it. Like, this isn't what I thought, and I actually feel bad about what I walked in here with. One of the other guys was literally crying when we walked away. Was trying to, like, wipe his face and stuff and get away from the group of guys because he didn't look like a punk.
Right.
But was literally crying while we were walking back to the van because he was like, man, like, it's not what I expected.
Yeah.
Right.
So, again, the training piece is nice. Love it, appreciate it. I'm sure there's people that make a living off of offering amazing trainings. But at the end of the day, you have to have some of everybody around. Just like in the military, just like on a good sports team, just like at Penn State. You have to have some of everybody around to help spearhead those conversations. And then if you can't, force it with exposure. Mix people up, get them together. And that's what the police and clergy, the chiefs and clergy meeting did. It mixed them all up and got everybody together.
And you know, I think, and we've had this conversation in the police and clergy meetings, and you know, and I know Chief Bensel had brought this up long ago, and it's still a battle we fight. You know, we have 67 police officers. I have, fortunately, now we have 5 females. For the longest time, we didn't have any females. We've had, in my career here in 31 years, we've had 1 black police officer, Kurt Wallace, who retired a couple years ago, now works for the Sheriff's Department. You know, and I happen to be Kirk's training officer when he was a young man. So that's how long I've been. I've been 31 years here.
Yeah, okay. Drink a lot of water.
Yeah. Eating too much. But, you know, it's, but we have these internal discussions. We just hired an Asian applicant in the police academy. We have 1 Hispanic. We actually have a native Spaniard in our department. But how does a department with 67 white police officers, for the most part, how attractive is that? And we've actually asked candidates of color, how attractive is it for you to come here? And they say, I don't want to be the first. So how do you get past, you know, I'm with you, you know, 10% of our demographics jurisdiction-wide are black. So I should have 6 black officers. You know, if you want to follow the community trends. But our biggest problem is getting the first. How do you get that first person, no matter how much you bring them in, make them feel comfortable, take them on a tour, everybody, you know, I use the term hug-a-thon a lot. That's kind of funny. But, you know, how do you bring them in, make them feel comfortable and say, this is the place where I want to be and patrolling an area that's 90% white. Versus them going to York City, them going to Lancaster City, them going to Harrisburg City, where they're going to be, for the most part, policing their own community. How do you get that one guy or gal to make a commitment to you? And that is the challenging part for us. And we ask them that. How would you feel working in a department where you're the only black person? Or you're the only Asian person? Oh, absolutely. There's no use, because I don't want people to come in unaware and not pre-exposed and You walk into our lobby, you see a picture of all of our police officers, and it's
Mhm.
easy to tell at that point we don't have a large minority. And how do you want to be the one dark face
Mhm.
on our lobby
Mhm.
poster?
Yeah.
And how would that affect you?
So
And
how
what
have you
what do we
changed?
do to get to that point
Yeah.
where we have one? And then once you have one, it's easier maybe to get
Right.
two, and then maybe it's easier to get three. But what is the recruiting picture? It's something we deal with every day and try to grasp at straws coming up with that answer. What is
Yeah.
that one magic word to
Yeah.
say you're the first, or you're the only, but we're working on it to get somebody to make that leap.
Yeah. In this area, more African Americans are moving out this way.
Right.
So a lot are moving into the Dover area, Dallastown area. A lot of African communities are now moving and grouping. So when they move somewhere, they're grouping into certain areas. And coming from York, I always say, what area are you in? Okay. What area are you in? Just to say, who are the officers you're going to have to deal with? And what is the area? So even I understand what you're saying. How do you get a black officer here and he has that, have the respect of the community? You know what I mean? Because we always felt we wanted to complain, but we don't. Right? And then we see others like, wow, they didn't give them a ticket yet. They yelling and screaming at an officer. We wouldn't dare try to yell and scream at an officer, right? Unless they're just out of their head, But other than that, you're more trying to survive. We go into survival mode, where we're like, I just want my ticket and I just want to go home. Just give me my ticket. And that's all we had to worry about, really. Even out here, all I worried about was getting a ticket. That's all I really worried about. When the narrative went to now being shot for getting a ticket, you never got your ticket. That's what's harming us now. But yeah, coming out here now, it's kind of like you would actually have to have two.
Yeah, and
To start it off.
our communities
Yeah.
have changed.
They have. It changed all out
we're
here.
getting large segments of our
Yeah.
area. Dover Township has a larger black population. They seem to be more concentrated. Conawaga Township, we have because of the I-83 corridor, we have a large black population in Conawaga Township because a lot of them still commute to Maryland every day.
Yes, they commute to
And
Maryland.
we have a lot of police officers from Maryland that live in those areas, and people that come from those areas they have a different perspective on law enforcement. They've moved out here to be safer for the most part, normally, to provide better for their families, and we try to encourage that. But how do we reflect that population change when? As Mike knows, it's very difficult just to recruit in general right now. I'm fortunate enough that we're at full staff, but I have 6 people in the police academy. And then when you look at the pool that's out there, and that's going back to meeting your community. We're now taking. It used to be people would line up at our front door to become a police officer.
Right.
Now we're, I don't want to say begging people to become police officers, but it's getting close.
That's where it is.
There's just not as many people signing up to do it, and
and then testing when I got hired. When I tested when I got hired back 23 years ago. We competed against 1,200 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like now.
That's
we used to test with Spring-Itsbury, and I can remember it was a whole day at the old Central High School. It was testing day, and you did physical day. You did written. Hundreds upon hundreds of people there fighting over 2 positions. And now we're getting 2 people for 50 positions.
So
county-wide.
Then to kind of wrap up the conversation, if someone like convince our viewers, why should they go into law enforcement? Like if there's someone watching this, what is it about law enforcement that's attractive?
I'm here for that all day. Okay. Yeah, because everything you see on the news, every difficult, challenging thing that you just heard in our conversation, the fact that the pay isn't high, the respect level of society is low.
Did you understand the assignment?
I need to go here. The hard job it is by nature, the fact that you're going to put your life on the line, that you're going to risk yourself each and every day. All of that is true. But here's the rub. you're going to put your life on the line each and every day for other people. You're going to be there when people are down and need somebody. You are literally going to get to be somebody else's hero. You're going to be able to have conversations with people that otherwise would have never wanted to hear your voice, whether it's doctors, whether it's lawyers, whether it's attorneys. You instantly matter because you wear that badge, because you're in that uniform. You get to make decisions that nobody else can make other than doctors and like with being able to take children out of dangerous households and situations. You'll be able to stop a mother from being abused. You'll be able to protect the child from being hurt. You'll be able to take the neighborhood drug dealer that's keeping somebody from wanting to come home at night out of the neighborhood. You'll be able to stop drug dealers, car thefts, individuals who are shooting at one another. You'll be able to get justice for people's entire families. You'll be able to change lives. And that is worth each and every headache that you may think comes along with wearing a badge.
Yeah, I agree. It has to be a career of service. There's more to it. There is more beyond just being a police officer. It's giving back to your community. And, and I use the term, and I don't use this lightly, being a police officer is front row seats to the greatest show on earth. The good, the bad, the ugly, the terrible. But at the end of the day, as we've all heard the cliches of it, when people are running from trouble, police officers are running towards the trouble. And, those are the people we're looking for. And there are thousands of those people in our community that can do it, but they haven't, hit the switch to do it, to explore after it. And, really get out there and serve. There's no better way to serve your community. Think about it. We are the ones, police officers are the ones that serve our community 24 hours a day. I'm not taking anything away from firemen. They sleep a lot. When somebody dials 911, the only thing that matters to the person who dialed is that somebody shows up.
Yes.
And the person that is always dispatched first when they have nobody else they can't figure out who else to send it to. They send it to a police officer and a cop shows up. May have a snake in your basement. We remove a lot of snakes in our jurisdiction. We're out here. But it's, whatever your problem is, potentially the solution is a police officer. So you're serving your community in so many different ways, other than just arresting people, other than just writing a ticket. We're fortunate enough that about 92% of our calls are all service calls. It's helping people with their lost dog. It's helping people with an ambulance call. It's helping. We only have about 8% maybe crime calls, criminal calls in our jurisdiction. So it's we're all about more of that service aspect. Yes, we arrest a lot of people. We write a lot of tickets. Our number one complaint is speeding in our jurisdiction, if you would believe that or not. Everybody, I use the adage. I just got one yesterday. I've talked to the same person twice in a month. A month ago, they called and complained that the road in front of their house was too rough. Okay? So the township paved their road. Okay? It was on the list. They called me yesterday to complain people were speeding. Because I made it smoother. Because I made it smoother. So, and it's so
that is right.
I mean, that happens everywhere. Like, we want to take parking away on this side of the street. Well, all it's going to do is increase speed, and you're going to complain about speed. But it's, it's an interesting perspective. But it's really about that service, and everybody has said it, and Mike knows this. It's a different job every day. And, in a jurisdiction of our size, it's potentially even a different way of policing community. We police so many different communities, from, near city-like atmospheres to areas where we have cows outnumber people 2 to 1. And those people in our rural areas expect to be policed in a different way. They don't want this close of attention as some of our people that live in higher density areas. So it's really, our officers get a taste of all of it. So not just that grind and grind and grind and grind, because take that Route 30 corridor, North George Street corridor in Manchester Township. Our officers that are down there, they get beat up with calls. They're handling crashes. They get a lot of service calls. We put a guy out in Paradise Township out towards Adams County. He's driving around. He's
Just
waving
driving.
at people. He's getting cows off the roadway. So it's a completely different job. It's completely different, almost like you're working for a different department. And we offer that ability to move people around to maybe where they fit better. And but it's just getting people really. I think we all do a good job of selling people once we can get them in the door. It's really about getting people in the door like we used to. And I think that's where the national narrative has really killed us.
Well, you guys are changing that by having conversations like this.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah.
And that's what I would want Pastor Ramona and people like her to take that. Like particularly like when you talk about Black, brown community, younger people, my thing to them would be, if you want to see it change, if you want to see what we're doing done differently, pick up the mantle, get in the game. Like get off the bench. Like it's cool. You can protest, you can do whatever else you want to do. But the best way to change it is to put on his uniform, get in that, take that test and go do the job and show this community how you want it to be done.
That's right.
Yeah, and I don't know how in the last 5 or 6 years, a majority of applicants, it seems like more women are getting into policing than there are men. We're seeing, and we see that even in the youth, because we run a Police Explorers program for ages 14 to 20. Even our Explorers program at this point is, if it's not 50-50, it's a majority females that are signing up, and they're top notch. And we're getting to mentor these kids for 4, 5, 6 years and keeping them on the right path. And some of our kids that have come into our Explorers program were on the wrong path, and through our officers and the mentorship have flipped them 180 degrees to where now they're doing well in school. They're not having problems anymore, and they're on a path to whether or not they ever become a police officer, they're going to be productive members of society. And that's that mentorship and that community involvement is huge.
It sounds like they can get started now then if they're interested in police.
Yeah, that's what
Well, thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate you on our episode 2 of Safe for the Chats. Yay!